I can't wait to, I don't even know if I can talk about these like a normal human being. Alrighty, hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sammy, Sam Marie, Samantha Marie-a-lot, if you will. A little bit to know about me is I'm 28, a psychiatric PA, avid reader, book enthusiast, and I own a small business. I'm currently training for a high rock, so if you're new here, that's kind of the girly who's here, who's sitting before you, and today we are going through my physical TBR. Is it more books than I was expecting? Absolutely. I think there's a few contributing factors to this. One, I have a little series going on here, ranking indie bookstores. And so with that, this girly is not walking in and ranking a bookstore without getting the full experience. So normally when I do those specific videos, I go into the bookstore and I do make a purchase, and more often times than not, is that purchase a book? Absolutely. Should I consider maybe buying merch instead? Probably. A second contributing factor is when I first started reading, I was living by myself in North Carolina. Oftentimes I was spending my time at the bookstore on the weekend. If I had finished my book I had read that week, I'm going to the bookstore buying a new one. 9 times out of 10 that new one has a buy one get one 50. What am I doing? I'm leaving with two books. Every single weekend I'm buying 2 books. I think a third is there's quite a few books on here that I still haven't read that were from my husband doing a birthday book challenge for me. He took me to Barnes & Noble, gave me like 30 seconds to look around and a minute to pick up any and everything. I'm not totally sure where we want to start. Maybe at the end we'll just go ahead and count them. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time, hopefully, on every single book because we have some to go through. First on this is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Now, I have always been a fan of the movies. I have not read every single book. This was not something that came into my life at a time where I was reading. This was a big movie phase of my life. I'm obsessed with the movies, but I've never read any of the books. However, I thought for a video at the time when I purchased this, it might be fun to read this with only having the knowledge of the movies and not the books, or even to read things in the actual timeline order. But I never got up to that, and I don't know that I'm going to do that. I might just read them as one normally would. If you don't know what this is about, this is Haymitch's story from The Hunger Games, The Knight and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I don't know too much about this. I just know that this is a romantasy book that caught Book Talk by storm this year. People love Rachel Gillig's writing. I actually have 2 more of her books on my TBR. It's gothic, a young prophet who is forced an impossible quest with one knight whose future she cannot see. People love this book. Another one, Conform by Ariel Sullivan. This is the first book in a dystopian romance series. This is the first book out in the series. One young woman becomes torn between 2 loves on 2 different sides of the rebellion. I don't know, there's just something that caught my eye about this book. I've seen stuff about it now, but when I first picked it up, I hadn't seen anything about it. And my husband saw it and he was like, no, you should definitely read this. And anytime he says something like that, I'm like, I wonder if I like it, will he then read it? Because that's always fun, you know? The next book, I took the dust jacket off of this. This is An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson. I'm not going to be able to tell you too much because there's no description if we took the dust jacket off. This is a blind date with a book that I picked up, and I got it at an indie bookstore in Columbus, Ohio. What they had written at it just really caught my eye. I know this is dark academia. I believe there's some romance, but there is this school that you can only see if you are invited to it, and our female main character is invited to that school for some power that she's had. She gets recruited to the school and things get dark, mysterious, maybe murderous after that. So yeah, dark academia, school setting. The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. This was very much earlier on in my, not back into my reading journey, but having had discovered booktubers, and I saw Haley Pham read this. This is a thriller, but I do believe it's a bit more of a slow build thriller, but they're at some villa. I know it's giving like summer. I got this at Books A Million, and Books A Million has a really good bargain section, and so this was $5 when I bought it, but like on here you can see it was originally $28.99. But there's something that happened in 1974 at this villa, and she's going to investigate it. But I imagine this is a very good thriller to read in the middle of summer. that's that there. This is A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was picked up on my birthday book challenge endeavor. This is a Flesh and Fire novel. It's part of a bigger series, a romantasy series. It says on the back, make him fall in love, become his weakness, and end him. Okay, period. I've not read a Jennifer L. Armentrout book before. This I've always had in the back of my mind. When I was on that birthday book challenge, I was looking around, I saw this, I was like, let me grab it. Let me grab it. I'll probably like it. And I just haven't gotten to it yet. This was like early on into my discovering booktubers. And this was a big talked about book at the time. If he had been with me, you can see that buy one get one 50 sticker. So I picked this up really only for that reason. This is a YA book and it's a love story, but there is a tragedy in it. I know this makes people cry quite a bit. This is mainly from a certain person's point of view, and then we get kind of the other person's point of view and then the aftermath of said tragic incident in the second book. Don't know why I bought both books before I had read the next one. I mean, it is a problem. Maybe I'll film one of the videos where people are like reading sad books, because you'll see people read this. At least if it was 2 to 3 years ago and somebody filmed a reading sad books video, this book was going to be in it, but I do have the first and the second. And another little duology, except I think there's actually a third coming out in this. I had a phase where I was super duper getting into dark academia, and I saw these editions of these specific books and I just had to have them. My soul looked at these editions and I said I have to own those, because this was when sprayed edges hadn't quite taken over the book publishing industry and had such a chokehold on it. But this is Ninth House, and I think that this specific one is like sick. This is Ninth House and Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, but I do believe this is an adult, new adult. I don't think these are YA, but these are dark academia books, and they're at Yale, I believe, a group of students. Alex Stern is the most unlikely member of Yale's freshman class. They were raised in LA, got into some certain suspicious stuff, but Alex is offered a second chance to attend one of the world's most prestigious universities on a full ride. And then she gets into forbidden magic, occult activities, all those things, and this is just the second book, but I actually think I saw that there was a third one coming out. Next, Normal People by Sally Rooney. Is this considered a romance or a literary fiction? Both, perhaps. I know Sally Rooney has one of like the most interesting writing styles people always talk about, but before I had gotten back into reading before graduating PA school, I watched Normal People, one of my favorite shows of all time, and so I thought, why not go back and read the book? So I just have this and I haven't read it. We're following Connell and Marianne, and we see them through high school and then going off to college and the growth through that, and it's very character driven. A lot of people relate to Connell based on his levels of anxiety, which I think is probably expressed better through the book. Good Dirt by Charmaine Wilkerson. This is the author of Black Cake, which is a pretty popular book, but this is a new release towards the end of last year, but this is something I picked up again at an indie bookstore. It was in Pittsburgh, but we're following a 10-year-old girl whose life is just flipped upside down on its head after this really tragic accident. She flees to France, but she really can't get away from her past. And it says, sometimes the only way forward is to look back. So she really needs to get back into her history to kind of move on with her life, move forward. I do think this is going to be quite an emotional read and a read that sticks with you forever. Touches on a lot of important topics. So I really want to get to this pretty soon. I think this cover is amazing too. Kristen Hanna, The Woman. All of the Kristen Hanna books that I got were actually from the birthday book challenge, because I had probably just read The Nightingale or had just finished it, recently read it, and I fell in love with it. And at the bookstore when we went, they had a Kristen Hanna table, and I was like, what better way to rack up the number of books and rack up this price tag is to grab a few books off of this Kristen Hanna table. So that's where all these came from, and I don't know, I haven't read them. I spent a lot of time getting into authors I hadn't read before, and now I have books from authors that I read and I loved, and now I need to get into their other books. So this is The Women. So this is following a nurse who worked for the army, but the challenges that came with that, as well as the challenges as coming back and not being recognized as a veteran and for their service, and what that was like for women and all of these nurses. It's definitely going to be an emotional read. Another Kristen Hanna, The Four Winds, another historical fiction. I want to say this is in the 1920s. The Great War is over. They're on the brink of a new and optimistic era. Elsa is who we're following. She's faced with a choice of marrying this man that she's never known. She lives on a farm. their farm is dying, their marriage is dying. And it says she has a choice: fight for the land she loves or leave it behind and go west to California in search of a better life for her family. This is not historical fiction, but this is Firefly Lane. There's actually a TV show too, but I believe this is a lot about friendship. Okay, this is like during the 70s and 80s. I know this one's quite emotional. I feel like this might be the one I see people cry the most to, is Firefly Lane by Chris and Hannah. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is a teeny tiny little book, but this is a dystopian novel where there's all these women imprisoned in a cage underground. None of them really know why they're there, except one woman has memory of what's going on. I think that's probably all you need to know to go into it. I've heard wonderful things. I love the cover too. The 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. This is a fantasy series, a fantasy trilogy maybe. I have heard nothing but raving reviews. This is actually something I put on my Goodreads want to read in 2022, I think. I was at the bookstore. I had a buy one get one 50 sticker on something, and so I was like, the 5th season has a buy one get one 50 sticker, so let me get that. I want to go into this pretty blind. I just know people love this fantasy trilogy. It says, this is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift. It starts with death. It starts with betrayal. Spellcaster by Jamin Eve. It says, to fight a monster, she'll need a monster. This is a standalone dark academia romantasy book. It's enemies to lovers. It says, welcome to Weatherstone College. Don't walk the halls late at night. Don't disturb the ancient magic, and don't under any circumstances ever trust a spellcaster. At 22, our female main character, she all of a sudden has her magic is really like coming to life, and she gets accepted to a prestigious college that deals with magic. I think this would be really fun. It's really short, teeny tiny. It's a standalone. You don't come across these too often, so I think this is fun to have just as a palate cleanser. Next, we have The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. Same author as A Fate Inked in Blood. This is a romantasy series. I think it's decently big. We're following a warrior princess trained in isolation. She is under the impression of who are the heroes and who are the villains until she gets sent off to a different area, different kingdom, and she starts to really question, am I on the right? Am I on the wrong side of things? People are obsessed with this series, and I definitely want to read it. Now this one, if I don't read this book in 2026, it's going to somebody else who deserves it. That's Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This is an enemies to lovers duology fantasy romantasy. It's a cat and mouse game of false moves, bringing them intimately together in a battle that may cost them their lives and their hearts. YA Legendborn by Tracy Dion, a fantasy YA series. They have superpowers. We're following a 16-year-old female main character. Her name's Bree. She wants to get away from her childhood home, her childhood memories where she lost her mom. There is a residential program for bright high schoolers at UNC Chapel Hill, and it seems like the perfect escape until Bree witnesses a magical attack her very first night on campus. I've never seen a bad review of this series. A Broken Blade by Melissa Blair. This is the Halfling Saga, another series, but this is a fantasy series, and we're following a female assassin. I saw this book at a Books-A-Million a while ago, and I had just read some other fantasy books, and it was $5 in the Books-A-Million bargain section. I was like, a female assassin? Yeah, I'll read that. But I really haven't seen many people read this, so I haven't heard too much about it. The Witch Haven by Sasha Payton Smith. This is a YA fantasy book that is giving witches and dark academia. It says, Haxhaven Academy, rules for young witches. Mind your instructions, no unsupervised spell work, and don't leave after dark. And it's set in 1911 New York City. I picked this up in October from Half Price Books. And I was like, ooh, this would be fun to read in October, and then I got caught up reading other books that I already had on my TBR. Another fantasy trilogy, The Cool Prince by Holly Black. I picked this up when I was really just like first dipping my toes into Booktube, and everybody was talking about this. I've seen a little bit back and forth now about it, but we're following Jude and Carden. I know somebody has a tail. I know they're enemies. I've seen people say this is the best romance they've ever seen. I've seen people say it's it's the worst romance they've ever seen. And I think you have to go in knowing that this is a fantasy trilogy with a romance subplot and not have it advertised as a romantasy specifically. So there's another stack. There's also a lot of fantasy books that I had purchased, and then I kind of got into more of a romance and literary fiction era. This is Immortal Dark by Taiga Skirma. A lost heiress, a soulless vampire, and a secret drenched in blood. It is a fantasy duology, young adult. I believe there's romance in it. The second book is Eternal Ruin, and I've heard nothing but fantastic things about it. I've only read one fantasy that's vampire related, but I love a vampire situation, vampire trope. An Ember in the Ashes by Sabah Tahir. This is a series, I believe there's 4 books in the whole series. There might be a 5th romantasy series. I don't know how to pronounce. Leia is a slave and Elias is a soldier, but neither is free. Normally they would not, this family that Leia is a part of would not challenge the Empire, but her brother is arrested for treason, so she makes a deal to be a spy, and that's where she meets Elias. And it says their destinies are intertwined and their choices will change the fate of the Empire itself. Donna Tartt, The Secret History. What do I need to say about it? It's the classic of dark academia. I got about halfway through this book, and then again 2025 had some really big challenges, and I just stopped reading it because life was hard, and then it had been some weeks and I was like, I feel like I gotta start from the beginning again. And so I just put it down and I read something else. I was really enjoying it. Like, I have annotations in here. I just gotta get back to it. Another Leigh Bardugo book, Crooked Kingdom. I've read Six of Crows. This is a fantasy duology. We're following a group of thieves, a group of criminals, if you will, who are set on this impossible task in the first book. Leaves off on a cliffhanger. This is the second book. I put this down and then I never came back to it, and I'm starting to think I might not be a person who can put down a series and come back to it unless it's like being released in real time. This is Lady of Darkness by Melissa Rorick. Very popular series, the Legacy series by this author. This is the series that comes before that, Lady of Darkness series. So some people recommend reading it before, some people just read the Legacy series, but I think I want to kind of have the whole idea. I know this is dark fantasy and we're following, it's giving assassin story, you know, female main character, strong assassin story. That's about all I know about it. One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. I read Alone with You in the Ether this year and fell in love with this author's writing style. So now I'm gonna go back and read all of her books, but of course I'm gonna buy them months before I decide to actually pick them up and read them. We're in Manhattan and we're following 2 different like crime families, crime bosses who are rivals, but it's giving Romeo and Juliet. There's gonna be one from one side and one from the other who fall in love. It's a love story, but it's also, I think this is fantasy as well, but maybe it's not. I'm not totally sure. While we're on the topic of the queen herself, Gifted and Talented. This was her new release last year. I think this sounds really, really good. It says money is the business, magic is the family curse. We're following different siblings. Their father is the CEO of this big company. He's dead, and so now these gifted children are trying to work out what happens next, who maybe gets the company. And on the end it says, on the pipeline from gifted kid to clinically depressed adult. Nobody wins, but which run will come out on top? V.E. Schwab, A Darker Shade of Magic. This is a fantasy trilogy. There are different, we're in London, but there's different Londons, different levels, different hierarchies. I believe our main character's in Red London, but there's also like Gray London, Black London, White London. There's magic, but they're kind of like parallel Londons, parallel universes. I think there may or may not be a romance subplot. We're following, the main character is Kel, but then he ends up running into Delilah, who is, I think she's a criminal. She robs him. I don't know. It takes him on a wild adventure. I do think it's giving more like urban fantasy. This is the next 2 books in the Beartown series, Us Against You, and then The Winners is the final one. Little guy, quite a big chunk of a book. These are, I can't wait to, I don't even know if I can talk about these like a normal human being, but the first book we're following so many different people, but not exactly in their point of views, like kind of, we're like, watching over all of them. It's a hockey town. Hockey is crucial to the social hierarchy, the economy, the school system. It's very ingrained, intertwined into the society. There is this big game coming up, and then this very tragic incident happens, and we're kind of seeing the repercussions of everything that happens as a result of that incident. I think about those characters early and often, you know, and I can't wait to see where they're at. I think I'll probably finish up the Poppy War series, and then I'll be reading these. Atmosphere, Taylor Jenkins Reid, took the world by storm last year. I have not read a Taylor Jenkins Reid book thus far. Our female main character, who is going to be one of the first female astronauts for NASA, but there's also a love story. I know there's tragedy. I know it's giving very real life. There's people who don't care about NASA who are like, oh my gosh, now I can't even look at the stars the same way or think about space the same way. And I think Taylor Jenkins Reid has a talent of doing that, because I know she wrote Carrie Soto's Back, and that's following a tennis player, and people are like, I didn't even like tennis, but I was consumed by this book. Head Witch in Charge by Avery Flynn. This was just kind of a random pickup because I was doing my ranking bookstores, but this was before it turned into indie bookstores, but I still felt I don't love going to a bookstore and not buying a book, you know? So I was in the Barnes & Nobles. That's the one that's in Union Square. It's like 4 stories, and I came across this, and this is just a witchy romance. That's really all I have to say. I do believe it is a spicy witchy romance. I probably won't read this until October for a little palate cleanser to give this season. The dedication is for eldest daughters. I am an eldest daughter. That was kind of the reason I picked it up, but then I had gone downstairs and I saw Gifted and Talented by Olive E. Blake, and then I was like, well, I'm not gonna go all the way back upstairs and put it back. So I just got both books, and that's why we have that. Ellen Hilderbrand, The Hotel Nantucket. I picked this up shortly after I watched the first season of White Lotus, because people said this book was giving White Lotus. That is _1 top tier. It's one of my favorite TV shows ever. It's giving rich people drama. I do believe there's like mysteries involved. Yeah, I think it's just vacation, drama, summer. One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. I believe this is a mother-daughter tale. A magical trip worth taking. A story about love, loss, the point in adulthood where we learn our parents are human too and not always perfect. This main character's mom passes away. They had a mother-daughter trip planned in 2 weeks, but now it'll just be the daughter who's going on that trip. There's some magical realism. She runs into her mom at a younger age, and the story unravels from there. I picked this up, and then my own mother passed away, and so I just don't know if right this second is the time, but I feel like if it's a good book, it could be a healing, fun time. Annabelle Monaghan, Summer Romance. I actually have no recollection of purchasing this book. Annabelle Monaghan normally writes romances that deeply follow the female main character on whatever journey in life she is going through. I read Same Time Next Summer, but unfortunately I have no recollection of reading the book. I do know I liked it because I was dog-earing it. We're following a woman who's like newly divorced, and she runs into this boy, and she's like, what harm could a little summer romance do? I've heard raving reviews about this book. This is Before I Let Go by Kennedy L. Ryan, a part of an interconnected standalone romance series. There's 3 books in it. I know she writes very emotionally raw and real romances, so we're following the female main character on her journey, but a part of that journey is the romance. I believe this one is a second chance romance. They're divorced, but they always keep coming back to each other. I think this will be a really good read, especially in times like these when Emily Henry is not coming out with a new book for the year. Let's talk about these 2 at the same time. These both also were picked up during my birthday book adventure, birthday book time. I saw one and I was like, well, let me rack up that check for him again and grab 2 because they're sitting right next to each other. And I know if I read one, I will want to read the other. At this time, I owned A Part of Your World, but I had not read it yet. At this time in life, I have read it yet and I didn't like it. And so I have been really put off on reading these, but the only reason I even read A Part of Your World is because it's an interconnected standalone romance series, and these are book 2 and book 3. I'm gonna start by reading this one. If it really doesn't do it for me, I will probably donate to the library, give to somebody else, you know. The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I believe this is just a folky winter romance meant to be read in the winter time. I do believe it is in Russia. I saw another person that I have similar reading tastes like this read it, enjoy it. I was just going through a time where I was shopping for books, and so I got it. Just last night, this is a romance novel, but people say don't go into it thinking it's a romance, that it gives more literary fiction with a romance subplot. subplot, which is again one reason why I picked it up, because that's more of a romance. That tends to be a 5-star read for me, as if it's more literary fiction, but it has romance. We're following a friend group who've been friends since they were teenagers, and now they're in their 30s. One of the friends, our female main character, has a crush on one of the other friends, but I guess there's a night that they're going out and something happens that flips the whole everything on its head, and they're figuring out secrets, drama. I think I'll really enjoy this, or at least I'll enjoy the writing style, and I'll find which specific book works for me the most. The Song of Achilles. This is giving Greek mythology. It's a love story, a romance. I know this brings people to tears. Another book, maybe I'll read it when I'm reading sad books. Caught Up, Liz Tom 40. This is a part of the Windy City series, interconnected, standalone romance series. We are following Kai and Miller in this one. Kai is a baseball player, and he is looking for a nanny for his kid. That nanny, I believe, ends up being Miller. Romance ensues. I have read the first two, but they just haven't been life-changing. I liked The Right Move better than Mile High, so I just haven't been super motivated to get into this. If I don't get into it this year, I probably will let it move off of my shelves. Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. I believe this is, okay, the Ruinous Love trilogy, part of a romance trilogy, but they are dark rom-coms, dark romance comedies. The reason I got this though was because I had gotten invited to a book club, and I was going to go, and then tragedy ensued in my own life, and so I didn't get to reading this or doing anything or going to that book club. So that's why I haven't read this. But the only reason I got it was for that book club, and I thought it would be more fun to like own the book and go to the book club, you know? Christina Lauren, The Paradise Problem. This is a summer romance. I've heard the female main character in this is so funny, and people love this female main character. I've read Love in Other Words, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. The two main characters, they get married for a specific reason, so it's kind of like a marriage of convenience, but later on, he actually has to bring her to a family vacation or destination wedding or something, because he will not get his inheritance unless he like really shows that he's married. So like they've been married, but they don't really interact at all until this vacation, and you know, love and romance ensues. I definitely want to read this. This is like definitely will be right up my alley. And talk about right up my alley, Allie Hazelwood. I have 2 more of her books on my physical TBR. Yes, I'm going to read them. It's just when I need something in between some books. One is Love on the Brain, and the other is Mate. This is a STEM romance. A lot of people say this one gives The Love Hypothesis. They say this man is giving Adam Carlson 2.0. And is that upsetting to me? No. I love Adam Carlson. I love The Love Hypothesis. So I personally am not upset about it, but I guess I could see why you would be upset about it if you read them back to back. I read The Love Hypothesis though back in 2023 probably. So I got this because why not experience Adam Carlson 2.0? This is Mate. This is interconnected with Bride, and this is a fantasy romance. They are werewolves. I don't know how much you can say too much about this one without spoiling Bride, so maybe I won't say too much about it. If you liked Bride, I think people are liking this one better, maybe. Throne of Secrets by Carrie Maniscalco. This is a part of the Prince of Sin series. The first like original trilogy is Kingdom of the Wicked, which is a romantasy trilogy, and it is so good. If you're gonna read anything by this author, go ahead and read that. And in that one, we're following the Prince of Wrath, one of the brothers. The next book is Throne of the Fallen. We follow the Prince of Envy, and in this one, we're following the Prince of Gluttony. However, you don't have to read like any of them. Like you could just read this, and that's okay if you just want something easy, fun to read. But I think you should read Kingdom of the Wicked. I only picked up Kingdom of the Wicked because at the time I wanted to read Throne of the Fallen. I was like, oh, I can't believe I have to read this because I want to read the other things. And I ended up loving it, like 5-star little romantasy trilogy. But this, we're following Prince of Gluttony, and the female main character is this reporter that we caught a glimpse of in the previous book, and she just writes bad things about the Prince of Gluttony and the type of parties he holds. But yeah, I think this will be fun. I really haven't heard too much about this, like in comparison to the other ones. My year of rest and relaxation. I know there's a lot of trigger warnings to read for this book if it's something you're going to pick up, but she is depressed, and she's like, well, what if I just sleep for a year? What if I could just sleep for a year? So she's definitely taking like prescriptions inappropriately, and it says the shocking and strangely tender story of a young woman's efforts to duck the ills of the world with the help of one of the worst psychiatrists in the annals of literature. And I just, from a psychological standpoint, this is interesting, like being a psychiatry PA, and maybe I should just really do like a reading sad books and just get really sad and emotional. Because look at this one. A Little Light life. I mean, everybody's heard about it. I know we're following Jude through his life. There's this group of friends. I know this is emotionally devastating, emotionally traumatizing. On the back it says this is an epic study of trauma and friendship written with such intelligence and depth of perception. I was gonna read this pretty soon after I bought it, but then I went to buy this and the guy, I had something else in my hand too, and the guy was like, I hate that book. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. And honestly, I didn't know too much about it at the time, other than that it was like trending, it was popular, and so I picked it up. And so that really just put me off. He often did things to make me uncomfortable at the cash register. So there was that. Lovely War by Julie Berry. I got this either at Half Price Books or at the Books A Million section, again for like somewhere between $5 to $7. And I saw Destiny Sidwell read and rave about this book, but it says, in the perilous days of World Wars I and II, the gods held the fates and the hearts of 4 mortals in their hands. So we're following 4 main characters. There's gods, there's goddesses, there's war, there's love. What more could you want in a book, really, honestly? Things I Wish I Told My Mother by Suzanne Patterson, Susan Delalo, and with James Patterson. It says, every mother and daughter should have conversations that change their lives. This book will win your heart. It's about a mom and a daughter learning how to talk, learning how to love each other. I picked this up because it was when my mom had first gotten sick, and one of her favorite authors is Jane Patterson, and I saw this and I was like, that feels like a sign. And then I was like, when I had it, I was like, I think I'm just gonna keep using books as escapism and not be emotional about this. Next, we have The Shepherd King duology by Rachel Gillig. One Dark Window, Two Twisted Crowns, a dark romantasy duology, very popular. I'd be surprised if anybody hasn't heard of these. We're following Elspeth, who needs a monster, and the monster might be her, apparently. Believe, like, her kingdom is, something's happening in her kingdom, and so she calls on a monster to help save whatever she needs to save. And making deals like that, you know, there's always a catch, there's always something more, and so it brings us on the rest of the tale that happens between these 2 books. I'm not reading the back of this one though, because I haven't read this one yet. This is The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno Garcia, very popular author for Mexican Gothic. I've heard great things about this author's writing style. This book, the cover just caught my eye. We're following 3 women in 3 different eras who encounter danger and witchcraft in this eerie, multi-generational horror saga. And so that just sounds like a time. It sounds like a time. The Charlie Method by Elle Kennedy. I have not read any Elle Kennedy books, and this is actually a part of a whole world that I haven't read anything from, but Brian and I were doing it, my husband and I were doing a challenge that was like, whoever finds a book that looks the most like one of us can, I don't know, get the book or something. It was just like silly, I don't know. This was dark hair. So yeah, Wait For It by Mariana Zapata. This I got it when I went to New York, when we went to New York in Brooklyn. I got it from the Ripped Bodice, one of the best bookstores I've ever been to. Mariana Zapata is known for writing a slow burn romance. When I just saw this at that bookstore, it was really going with the stack of books I had. It was giving pink, it was giving the vibes. I've not read a Mariana Zapata book before, and I think that would be a great place to start. Hello?
Oh, sorry to interrupt, I wasn't gonna come in. I heard you talking. Whoa, you look pretty.
Thanks. Okay, this is Young Jane Young by Gabrielle Zevin. Another book that honestly, I don't have a whole lot of an idea of what it's about, but I love Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow by this author, one of my favorite books. And so I decided to pick up another book, The Sunset Years of Agnes Sharp. Cover is amazing. It says a quirky group of seniors attempt to solve a murder mystery while covering up another in this twisty, darkly funny mystery. I don't know. I think this will be a really fun read though. The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This is a very popular magical realism type of literary fiction book. Years ago, a reclusive mega best-selling author quit writing under mysterious circumstances. Suddenly, he resurfaces with a brand new book and a one-of-a-kind competition offering a prize that will change the winner's life. And we're following Lucy Hart, who is going to join this competition. I know people love that book. It's short, sweet. Please Stop Trying to Leave Me, Alana Saab. I saw this and I was obsessed with the cover. The most delightfully unhinged and chaotic novel I've read in years. An affecting and singular exploration of a woman's attempts to live and write with mental illness. So we're following this female main character, Norma, who is dealing with a lot of mental health challenges, and she's working with a therapist to work through them, but she's ready to write books again. I judged the book by cover and I got it. Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellor. This is another one. It was like at the bargain section, $5 to $7. It says, an addictive, humorous, and poignant debut novel, The Shockwaves. I think maybe it's The Blues Sisters is the other one that people rave about from this author, but I'm kind of getting more into a literary fiction time in my life. So I think that would be a good time to pick this up. We're following a painter who has escaped from England to New York and is still finding her place, but her visa is ending and she meets Frank. Frank is older, he's successful. He offers her the chance to continue the life she's currently living with a green card. The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I picked this up recently as well on our New York trip. We're following twins who were inseparable. This is a literary fiction novel, but ultimately choose to live two very, very different lives that take them on very different roads, and then they have kids, and you start to think like, well, what happens when their lives start to intertwine? And I love the cover. The Ministry of Time by Kayleen Bradley. This is I think this is sci-fi, but there's also a romance. It says this is a genre-defying, best-selling debut novel of the year. In the near future, a civil servant begins to work on a highly confidential project. A government ministry is gathering expats from across history to discover whether time travel is feasible. But she finds herself falling in love with somebody she meets along this time travel journey. The Full Moon Coffee Shop, magical realism, literary fiction read. This was actually something that I did at the indie bookstores, but I was letting other people pick out my reads, and this is what my sister-in-law picked out. The Full Moon Coffee Shop is this coffee shop that you can only go to if you're invited to by this specific cat, and that's all I really know about it, but it's really teeny tiny. I think this will be just a quick, fun palate cleanser. People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young. I meant to read this the second it came out because this cover is giving fall, and it came out in the fall. I have read Out on a Limb was the book that I read. I really enjoyed that. This is another romance book that is it just radiates fall. I really don't even know too much about what happens in it, just that this cover belonged on my bookshelf. I know we're following Prudence. She's very introverted. She has a routine, and she's caring for her mom who has early onset Alzheimer's disease, but Milo comes in and they start a friendship. I think there's like a casual situation that happens that turns romantic. By a Thread, Lucy Score. I also got this book at the Rip Bodice. It was, again, a romance novel that was just fitting the vibes for the day, to be in Brooklyn, to be in New York, to be at the Ripped Bodice. This was a book that I saw everywhere when I first started to get into Booktube. So this was just like very reminiscent of a specific point in time in my reading journey of just seeing it everywhere, and I'd never read it. And the Ripped Bodice, again, was also very reminiscent of that. So what better place than to buy this there? This is a grumpy boss, grumpy sunshine romance. The male main character, I believe, fires the female main character, and then his mom makes her hire her back, and so they're kind of like beefing, but then of course a romance must ensue, so I had to get that. Let's talk about these two books, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies and Map of the Otherlands. This is a cozy fantasy romance trilogy. We're starting off in this one, and the female main character, Emily, is writing an encyclopedia for fairies, and on that she runs into her, I think it's maybe an academic rival. So there's also a romance that happens. Covers are gorgeous too. A Crowns of Nyaxia novel, The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. This is part of the Crowns of Nyaxia series, a romantasy series. There's some standalone novellas in it. It starts with, I'm gonna look at it, The Serpent and Wings of the Night. I really enjoyed the first book, and then I really enjoyed both of the standalone, one novella and one novel that's a part of it. The two first books follow a couple. This book, the two next books follow a couple, and then there's two more that follow a different couple, but there's the same plot kind of happening, the same fantasy plot kind of happening throughout, but I just haven't really gotten around to it. I like more books from the series than I don't like, but something about the second book just really like fell off for me, so I haven't been motivated to pick this up. Lastly, we have Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, another fantasy romantasy series I'm just not sure if I'm completing at this time, so it's just kind of been sitting on my shelves. I feel like I don't have to talk about it too much because we kind of already know about, I mean, everybody knows about Fourth Wings, the first book, Iron Flame. This is every book on my physical TBR right now. Should we count them real quick? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 73. So yeah, so we have 73 books on our physical TBR. That is a little embarrassing. I'm not going to lie. I did think it would be under 50. I just don't know why I need to buy them before it's time to read them, but you know, I'm just a girl who likes to spend her money on books. Stay tuned if you want to see me get through this physical TBR. Stick with me through this. We're gonna dwindle this down. We together, we're gonna dwindle this down. Your physical TBR and my physical TBR. So thank you for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.